Let us begin our journey. In the hush of a twilight that fell over Tudor England. The cobbled streets are quiet, the hearths flicker in the great houses, and in the distance, the bells of a distant abbey toll the hour. This was a kingdom under transformation. A land of shifting powers and ancient fears. The year is 1531, and Henry VIII sits upon the throne, his rule ironclad, his fears ever growing. Tonight, you will not hear of battles or royal weddings, but of kitchens and cauldrons, of paranoia made law, and the quiet, chilling invention of death by boiling. Rest gently as we unfold a darker page of English history. A page inked not in politics alone, but in fear, suspicion, and suffering. King Henry VIII, mighty and imperious, ruled a kingdom in fear of poison. He had broken from the Pope, rejected a queen, and crowned himself head of the Church of England. In the eyes of many, he had made himself a target. Assassins could be anywhere. And in a time before fingerprints or modern medicine, poison was the silent weapon of choice. To eat was to gamble. Servants could kill. Cooks could betray. And so, in 1531, the king did not simply strengthen his guard. He rewrote the law itself. A new punishment emerged from his anxiety. Not the sword, nor the noose, but the pot, the cauldron. A death slow, boiling, and unimaginable. Not an act of war, but of vengeance. Royal vengeance. Richard Rouse was not a nobleman. Not a soldier, nor a rebel. He was a cook. A simple servant in the home of Bishop John Fisher. A man soon to fall from royal favor himself. Richard's world was one of boiling pots and wooden spoons. Of morning bread and evening stews. But one day, something changed. A pot of porridge was prepared. Within hours, 17 people were vomiting, screaming, dying. 2 would not survive. The kitchens fell silent. The bishop's house descended into chaos. And all eyes turned to the man with the ladle. Richard was arrested, questioned, broken. His confession came, but was it truth, or torment? The court would not wonder long. The king had his law. Now he had his first victim, and so it came to pass. On a grey April morning, under the watchful eyes of London's citizens, the great cauldron was prepared in Smithfield. A site already infamous for executions. But this was different. Blacksmiths had forged a vessel large enough for a man. A scaffold stood beside it. Beneath, firewood lay stacked, waiting only for a spark. The crowd gathered slowly at first. Then in droves, drawn by morbid curiosity and royal decree. Richard was brought in chains. Eyes hollow, steps slow. Witnesses say he spoke to the crowd. But his words are lost to time. He was lowered into the water while it was still cool. Then, the fire was lit. A slow, dreadful ascent toward death. The screams, they say, lingered long. Pregnant women fainted. Children were rushed away. Even in Tudor England. This was too much. 10 years passed. And for a while, the cauldron lay quiet. But then, in 1542, it was used again. This time, not for a man, but for a girl. Margaret Davy. A servant, perhaps no more than 16 or 17. Accused of poisoning her employers. The evidence, thin. The motive, unclear. But suspicion, in Henry's world, was often enough. Margaret was interrogated, and like Richard, she broke. Her confession, confused and fearful, sealed her fate. And so, the cauldron returned to Smithfield. Witnesses said she cried and begged. That she trembled, unable to walk. That the crowd, once eager for the spectacle, turned away. When Margaret died, there was no cheer, no crowd eager to linger. Just silence. The kind that follows a storm. After Margaret's death, something changed. The law remained on the books. But it was never used again. No more cauldrons. No more boiling. Even a kingdom accustomed to hangings and drawn executions had found its limit. Clergy whispered sermons about mercy. Judges grew uneasy. And the people remembered. Parliament did not repeal the law immediately. But it faded, quietly. Like a nightmare you choose not to revisit. By the time Henry died, the law had become a ghost. And today, it stands as one of the most horrific moments in English legal history. Not for how often it was used, but because it was used at all. And now, the fire has burned low. The cauldron is gone. The square at Smithfield is quiet once more. The echoes of that dark law linger only in the parchment of time. Tonight, we remember not the horror alone, but the humans caught in its grasp. Richard Rouse. Margaret Davy. A cook. A girl. Their stories remind us that history is not always kings and crowns. Sometimes, it is quiet people. Living in dangerous times. Let your thoughts drift now. Away from firelight and fear. And into the softness of sleep. The past cannot reach you here. Here, there is only peace. You are safe. And the night is kind.